Greetings, friends. My name is Oscar, and I'm joined on this lovely day by my friend Rob. How are you, Rob?
I'm pretty good. Ready to talk about some games.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I do my not game of the year list every year, and I think this is the fifth year in a row, which I'm pretty proud of. Wanted to just mix it up. I wasn't feeling it, for the previous year that we shall be talking about was somewhat shit. So
Mm, good
just
time
wasn't
to
really
play
feeling like
games.
yeah, I just didn't really feel like reliving that year in any kind of capacity. So Rob is here from a state of the country, and a state of mind that wasn't so affected by the Rona.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty crazy. It's maybe one of the only places in the world where it's still pretty normal. But yeah,
yeah, you've got a grand total of like 3 cases
I
this
know.
whole year
It's
or
really
something.
getting out of control.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about games. So yeah, not game of the year. Quick rule rundown. These aren't in any order. These are just games that I played. Think of them more as recommendations. They can't have appeared on any game of the year list that I've looked at, and I've looked at about three. Um, yeah, that's it. And they have to have just come out in some capacity that made them worth talking about this year. So that's either a re-release, or a port, or there was some DLC added, or they came out of early access, or they launched in early access. Anything. Just got to be a good recommendation for something that no one else talked about.
I won't be following these rules. I'll just be talking about 5 games that I played because I don't play a lot of games.
That's fine. What a year. I mean, my game of the fucking year would be like Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age, but that's like a 15-year-old game.
Oh, what a game.
So so yeah, can't really put that on the list. But yeah, I mean, my first one is Void Terrarium. Did you have a look at this one
Yeah, I
or
saw
not?
it on the eShop.
Yeah. So this one's really interesting. It's sort of like it is one of those old like mystery dungeon. If you've played like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or any of the mystery, I think it's Chocobo from Final Fantasy Mystery Dungeon as well. And it's like a kind of grid-based roguelike where you move between these very simple rooms and stuff. But in between those little roguelike sections, you go back to this side-scrolling area where you're building out this like terrarium, or you're a little robot in the post-apocalypse, and you find like a girl who has somehow survived, and she has like a plant growing out of one of her eye sockets. Really weird. And you're like, oh, she's gonna die if we don't look after her, and you decide to like build a home for her and like seal it and fill it with furniture and things, and you have to like go out and do runs of this roguelike to get things to craft materials and things to like build her home for her. And it's got this like really dark kind of art style, and the music is just so foreboding, and yeah, it's like really weird. It's just a very strange atmosphere, because then you have this is very mild spoilers that happens in the first like 10 minutes of the game, but your companion is this like computer who was like in charge of running the life support systems for like this planet or whatever, and got angry that it was feeling unappreciated and murdered all the humans by like blowing up the power plant or something. And that's why the apocalypse happened. So he's got this like massive guilt complex, but he's just like a smiley face computer. It's really strange. I can't, I can't even explain it very well.
Yeah, it sounds
But
super wacky. I definitely want to check it
yeah,
out.
it's so dark, and it's a little bit disturbing. That it's a hard recommendation, like hard to recommend for people who maybe not wanting to play something about the apocalypse in 2020. And it's like, if you feed the girl like too many mushrooms that are like infected or whatever, she'll like get sick, and then you have to like run and find like an antidote for her. So it was like probably the worst year to release this game, but it's really interesting. Oh, and the other crazy thing is, it's like when you go off on runs, she has like a little Tamagotchi like window in the bottom corner, so you have to like look after her, and like the deeper you go, the more like she'll get hungry or like do a poo or something. And like, so you've got to kind of like be very quick in your runs. It adds like a time element that is better justified than in something like Spelunky, where it's like, oh, the ghost appears after 10 minutes or whatever. It's like, no, in this, it's like you can kind of risk like her starving or something.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely sounds
yeah,
like a funky game to check out.
it is very, very weird, very cool, and I do reckon that's probably my game of the year in terms of like the weird, cool thing that I played for a long time. Yeah. How
Nice.
about you?
My first one I'm going to talk about is Factorio. This is a game I played a lot with my friends last year. Um, we've been playing a lot of these sort of games where it's pretty open-ended and you sort of make your own fun with them, which we're really enjoying. It's
That's
just
similar to a game that just came out called Dyson Sphere, I think, right?
yeah, that's like a cross between Planetary Annihilation and Factorio, and it's more like solar system-y based. It looks
The
really
game
cool.
Planetary Annihilation.
Yeah, not the
Okay.
concept, yeah. Uh, and
Yeah.
so Factorio, if you don't know what it's about, you're like a little spaceman who lands on this alien planet, and as all good spacemen do, you need to colonize a planet as quickly as possible and create little automated factories for yourself. And
So
yeah,
you're Elon Musk.
basically, yeah. Eventually, you
Yeah.
need to build a spaceship and leave the planet, or you just keep expanding. And you do it with friends. It's a really fun time, and it's really great watching how certain people create parts of their factory and comparing them to other people and trying to figure out these big spaghetti things. And if you're into coding, it's really interesting watching how it's like visualizing how people would code in a world. It's really cool. But yeah, that was a good time. What about you for your next one?
Yeah. Something interesting about that is like the way you described it, like the thematic conceit of you landing on the planet, having to build this system up and get bigger and bigger and then escape the planet, sounded like Subnautica, which I never played, but you told me about. And it's sort of like interesting that you can have the same idea basically explored into completely different gameplay systems, you know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think that colonization aspect is a huge thing that people love doing for
Yeah.
games. But it's a bit like, yeah,
Yeah.
not great.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to go on one that actually, fuck, this leads on so well. Speaking of building a city, my next one is Townscaper, which I think some people will be like, oh, it's not even a game, really, is it? You know, you're not really, there's no challenge, you're not doing anything. But it's by, I've forgotten his last name, but I remembered his first name because it's the same as mine,
Oscar
Oscar something.
Staleberg.
Stahlberg, something like that. And you basically just start with like an ocean. You just start building like this town. It's kind of like this Voronoi sort of grid that you just click on a space and it builds like a little piece of land, and then you click it again and it builds like a house on it. But then you're like, oh, now there's no space for those people to walk around, so you put like right next to it, you're like, I put a little space there, and then you do it. There's no resource that you're using, there's no people, which is kind of strange. You just sort of building a nice little diorama of this town, and the towns sort of look like a cross between like Venice and, I don't know, like Switzerland or something. I don't really know how to explain it. Like they just look like general European sort of houses from my basic understanding of architectural styles in Europe. And but then yeah, it's you're building them on. You start with the flat plane of water, which I think is interesting. Like he didn't start with it. You're on like flat ground, like SimCity, and I want to know why he didn't do that. So Oscar, if you're listening, why did you start with the water? Was that a conscious choice? Was it just something that was just you just did it? Who knows? Um, but what I think is really interesting is that people be like, oh, well, there's no, it's just a toy or something. You're just doing this stuff. But the challenge I think comes from like you want it to look certain ways, and so I haven't really explained it well, but like the way the grid is not symmetrical. You can't really make symmetrical things. If it gets too big, it starts to veer off in different ways because the grid is not like square, and the like the way you put houses next to them to each other will sort of like spawn in procedurally like different kind of aspects of a town. So if you make a ring of buildings that are all next to each other, inside that ring it will spawn a park with trees and grass. And then if you
Mhm.
sort of like put two buildings of different colors like on top of each other and then delete like one of them in the middle, it will like create a certain type of like scaffolding to hold them up. And it's like, oh, that doesn't look very nice. And the challenge comes from trying to get it to look nice and get it to like generate that exact like model that you're looking for. It's it's really hard to explain, but I think it's something special. I think definitely check it out. It's very relaxing. It was a very 2020 game for me because it was just like you just kind of put a podcast on and just build a nice little town, and it will sort of always look good, no matter what you make, which is really interesting.
It has a great look. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Islanders a little bit if you've played that game.
It's sort of like that, only if you just it's literally like someone did a Sim City to Sim City. So like Will Wright did Sim City because he did like Raid on Bungling Bay or whatever it was called, right? And he was building these cities out and then just to be destroyed by this helicopter. And he was like, I was having way more fun building the cities than I was destroying them in the helicopter. So he built Sim City. And then Sim City is obviously based on all these systems and rules. And then I think Townscaper is interesting because it's like, it's almost like you went like, oh, I was playing Sim City and I was thinking, man, I'm having way more fun plopping down these like buildings than I am managing fucking freeways and stuff. So he just got rid of that aspect of it as well. And then he's just added this like really cool, this like procedural generation of like things, putting different things next to each other in just the right way to get it to spawn in something. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it looks super cool. Definitely something I want to check out.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like a $5 or something, so definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Got another one?
Yeah, the next one of mine is Quake 1 from the 90s. Because I really love Quake 1. I think in terms of like just old shooters and also new shooters, it has my favorite mechanics. It's quite slow, which is good for my old man brain and hands, and plays pretty well with a controller, which I mainly do these days. Specifically the mod Arcane Dimensions, which was this mod that came out a few years ago. That it's like a map pack. It's been in the making for like a number of years, and it's this huge collaborative effort between all these guns in the Quake 1 mod scene. And the maps are just incredible, and the level design and how they play and stuff, in my opinion, is pretty comparable to a lot of modern shooters, but it's just so streamlined because it's Quake 1. It doesn't have any flashy mechanics or anything like that. It's just very fun to play and worth checking out. And Quake 1 is like $3 on Steam, so grab that and grab Arcane Dimensions. It's really good.
Something that always strikes me about Quake 1 is how there's no like is it motion tweening or whatever between the animations of the guns and things. They just sort of like click between states, and I always think that's just such an interesting look that is now I think kind of popping up in other shooters I'm starting to see, but not necessarily with 3D models, because I think people think it looks bad, but I think it looks sick. It's like the stop motion-y kind of thing.
I really like it. It gives everything a sort of surreal look as well, which is great.
It's almost like claymation because like these models are so low poly,
Yeah, I really like the look of Quake 1. I think it's timeless.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like really interesting kind of architectural stuff in there in the early levels, which I think were Romero's sort of work in that one. Again, he did like a few opening levels, but he got his kind of like big dick Romero on and was like, I think I know a thing or two about opening levels after 2, and then he made like some interesting levels that were maybe just a little bit too ambitious or something.
Yeah, that's what I love about Arcane Dimensions. A lot of the maps are very similar to those early levels.
Oh right, yeah. I should check out Arcane Dimensions.
Yeah, you should. It's really good.
My next one is just I don't have like a good follow through. It's Cruel Band's Career, which I saw I think in the like Discovery coming up next or coming up soon or whatever on Switch, like a few months before it came out. And then when it came out, I bought it and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna put this on my Game of the Year list. No one's gonna have played this because it looks really fucking weird. And then the Filthy Casuals podcast went on about it for about 3 weeks in a row, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. This is my thing.
It's so weird that they found that game.
I think it's they're all quite like into like interesting kind of weird punky art style type things, and it's got a great art style. It's just black and white, and it's got a bit of like red and yellow here and there for like certain items, but this is like really like weird kind of hand-drawn art style. I don't really know enough about that kind of thing, but it looks like a very like 90s sort of thing.
Yeah, it looks great. I really love the look of that game.
Yeah, it sort of looks like a comic book that you get from the 90s where it's like the punchline was someone getting his dick out or something, you know? It's like really, yeah, like on the verge of being like bad taste. But just, I don't really know what's going on in the game. Basically, I haven't explained what the fuck it is. All right, so the closest thing I can think to it is it's like Plants vs. Zombies, but not necessarily a tower defense. So you're imagining like Plants vs. Zombies, but you could hit like left and right to like rotate your plants around. So like the guy at the top would go to the bottom, the guy in the middle would go to the top, and you've got like 3 guys and there's like 3 lanes that like enemies come towards. And then you've kind of got to manage like their health, and then their like when they kill a guy they'll get like they'll get like bonus kind of stuff, and you want to get them to kill like enough guys to pull up their special attack. And it's just this sort of like weird management thing with really cool music playing over the top of it. And basically the idea is sort of like you're this weird punk band that's playing these really strange gigs in weird places, and it's yeah, it's just very strange. I can't really explain it. And the whole thing is like just translated into English, just like it's hard to know if it was purposeful. Like it almost feels like a purposely kind of dodgy translation, because it actually adds to the atmosphere, I think.
Sounds a bit like Yakuza.
But like almost like that. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, in terms of the translation, yeah, it feels like it's like, yeah, you've almost got to like sort of read it a few times and try to interpret what they meant. Like, I can't remember what it was, but one of them would just be like, you know, collecting this will make the heart feel good or something. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? And then you're like, oh, it gives you more health, right? Okay. Yeah, it's like increase one's heart, and you're like, huh? Yeah, so just like really, really weird things like that, where it's almost like a puzzle trying to work out what the fuck you're meant to do in this game. But it's really cheap. It's like $5 as well, and I definitely recommend playing it. I think he added, or she, or whoever made it, made an update to it, and there's like an easy mode as well, which is cool. It's a roguelike as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. You sort of like collect power-ups in between these levels that sort of like help your band, and then you unlock new band members that you can like have in and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, I really want to play that one. It looks great.
Yeah.
I've said that about all these, but that one does look great.
Yeah, well, I think with Void Terrarium's a big time sink. You know, it's like there's a grind to that. It's, you know, I think it's a thematic grind that makes sense. You know, it's the story of that. But Townscaper and Cruel Bands, like, you could plot half an hour into them and be like, yeah, sick. You know,
yeah,
that was fine. I got what I needed out of it. But you might just get like hooked on it, and I definitely did.
Yeah, that's definitely my jam these days. Short and sweet games.
Yeah.
Unlike,
I think Townscaper as well, coming out on the Switch soon, and Cruel Bands is out on the Switch, so both would be great Switch games.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
My next one is one that has certainly popped up on Games of 2020 lists, and the game is Hades. I'll explain what Hades is, I guess, just in case people don't know.
No, just don't. All
right.
Just don't.
Hades is good.
I don't think people want to hear it.
Yeah.
People know it. Yeah.
It's a good game. You kill people. You fight your way out of.
Now, just explain
hell.
what you liked about it.
I liked the work, like the figuring out the combos between the gods, figuring out what you thought was going to work well, and then what you didn't think was going to work well. I also like the story aspect of it as well. I like the fact that they really tried to justify the roguelike nature of it in the narrative. And I think they did a pretty decent job, especially compared to other roguelikes. A lot of roguelikes just sort of cop it and go, oh, it doesn't make sense. This is just how it is. But
yeah, or they mix in like Dead Cells, where it's like, oh, it's weird. You keep coming back to life. I don't understand.
Yeah, and it's a bit silly. But Hades,
Spelunky does the same thing, I think, because that was like the first one, and I think Derek, you might have been like, it doesn't make sense that he keep coming back to life. I don't know. He doesn't understand the magic. There you go.
yeah. And, Hades, they really lean into it, and another thing I love about it is the soundtrack. I thought that was a really good soundtrack. So yeah, had to put it on the list.
Yeah, it's got a great soundtrack. I have probably spent more time listening to the soundtrack than playing the game because I bounced off it, as some people say.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about.
We've had a lot of discussions about it. Yeah, I think my opinion on Hades is that I think it's a great like introduction to a lot of like roguelike and action game concepts, and I just think that for someone who's maybe really into but one or both of those things might come off it a little bit like it could have done more to be like a bit different, you know what I mean? Like I think the things that are different about it are things that people who are really into like the systems and things of roguelikes and action games might be a bit like, I've seen that before, you know?
Yeah, I don't play a lot of those super hardcore action games, so yeah, for me it was nice.
Yeah, I don't want to go.
Yeah,
I don't want to start on that one again. It's like a 10-hour discussion where I'm like, no, it's about frame timing.
Yeah.
My next one is actually, I thought about whether to add this in or not because it came out super early in the year and it's not a complete game. So it's Starfetch's pilot episode, which is this like sort of, I don't know how to explain this game. It is like a trash game, which is the thing now that people say. It's like, oh, I'm going to embrace the fact that I didn't put effort into this. But I think this game obviously did have a lot of effort. It's like someone who really knew how to make games trying really hard to make it look like they didn't know how to make games. And how do I explain it? So it's okay. The gameplay is sort of like a platformer with like procedural animation. So you're like walking and your legs kind of do this like waddle thing, and then your mouse control, use WASD to move, and then mouse control, you like point in the direction that you want to like slash your sword or your stick or whatever you have, and then you sort of have to like actually fling your mouse in that direction to like stab in that direction, and enemies will like shoot at you and things, and you can like chop bullets in midair if you flick your mouse fast enough, which is just like a terrible idea for a gameplay concept. It's just like, oh my god, it's just like would be so much better to use an analog stick or something, but it's just having it be this terrible idea, it and it's so fucking ropey as well, makes it feel very weighty, and like you basically just get through every encounter being like, oh wow, can't believe we got through that one, huh? Like, and your character, it sort of matches the story. Like your character's this guy who works at a convenience store and then is sort of, in quotes, rescued by this very punky character who's like anti-capitalist, you know, down with the man. I'm like summarizing it very badly. It's more nuanced than that, and cooler than that. But you're sort of rescued by that. You form a gang with them, and then you sort of like do some missions for the police where you kill a few people, and then you are trying to get to the top of this tower to beat like the big bad guy. I don't know, it's really weird. I can't explain it very well, but you should definitely play this because it's free and it goes for about an hour and a half, and that's all I can say about it, really. I'll put some gameplay, you'll see what it looks like. It looks really like ugh, but then you like realize when the cutscenes and things come up, you're like, oh, this is on purpose, and there's like enough stuff in there that you're like, I couldn't have done that myself. Like at first you're like, fuck, I could have just drawn this, it's just a triangle or something, and then you're like, oh wait, no, this is well done. And the humor in it, I think, is very good as well. There is one of the bosses in the game that does like a montage where it's just like, you'll have to defeat all the bosses, and then one of them is just photorealistic horse. It's just called photorealistic horse. And there's one of my like favorite lines that I want to steal and put into something else one day, and it's just you meet up with the boss, and he's just like, well, if it isn't Mr. Big Dick himself. And I just thought that was a great line. So yeah, that's it.
I love the punky look, I guess, of it. The visuals are really good, like so lo-fi and really consistent.
Yeah. And it's just like, The writing is probably the thing that makes it. If it wasn't so like well written and just perfectly like punchy in its dialogue, and not like, it's not like lame twee punk or anything, and it's not trying too hard. It like genuinely feels dangerous in the ideas that it's putting out there, and these characters feel unhinged but likable in that same way. That it's almost like it in the way that like you could say something like South Park was in its first season, where you're like, wow, how the fuck did this get made? You know what I mean? Like, how did you do this without censoring yourself even, you know? It's really cool.
It has that collagey look about it as well, like South Park.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, so that's mine.
Okay.
You got one?
Yeah. My next one is another pretty big game, and it wasn't released in 2020. Deep Rock Galactic. Maybe it came out of early access in 2020, but yeah, I played that a lot in 2020, especially during lockdown. Like Factorio, it's another great game just to play with friends and hang out. The premise of it is you and up to 3 other friends are space dwarves who need to go to these far off asteroids and mine them for certain resources, and then get back to the rocket and then blast off. And basically the longer you spend on each of these missions, the more treacherous it becomes. So it has this sort of Left 4 Dead element where you're just trying to rapidly get through it. But all of the terrain is...
Risk of Rain, I think that was Risk of Rain, did they do that?
Yeah, they did that as well, yeah. So you have to...
I didn't play enough Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Left 4 Dead in a lot of ways, but it's like this halfway cross between that and Minecraft, I guess, because the whole thing is like just fully destructible, and there are all these amazing randomly generated cave systems you're exploring. It just has an amazing feel to it.
Just the pitch for this just sounds like the most like 2012 game pitch ever. It's like, all right, okay. So hear me out, all right? Left 4 Dead meets Minecraft.
Yeah, and it works like better than it sounds like it does. And I know this game is really popular, but I still think it's underrated. Like, the execution is extremely good, and you could play it for like hundreds of hours. It has maybe a bit of a hostile game loop in terms of it has this Destiny style like unlock thing, but a lot of the unlocks are pretty significant. They're not just stat changes, they're like properly different weapons. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, I think those kind of unlock systems can work. Like, people are just immediately like turn off to them sometimes, but I always think like Titanfall 2, I always come back to that and I'm like, I really liked the unlock system in that, but like, why? And I realized that the unlock system was just there to stop you from just trying a gun once and then moving on to another one because you didn't like it.
Yeah.
And the idea was like, try it, and then you're stuck with it until you unlock the next one. And the idea is that maybe you'll see the nuance in it or something.
Yeah. That can be one of the really good aspects of those progression systems. Just sort of the slow drip of content that provides more than just like nice dopamine hits when you get something new.
Yeah, just making you actually like pay attention to things.
Yeah.
This game, I was talking to my brother and just talking about No Man's Sky, and I was like, oh god, I would really fucking love a No Man's Sky that just didn't have any of the inventory shit in it and all that crap. It just felt like it had to be there for the audience, and I just wanted it to just be like, I could get in a spaceship and just be multiplayer with a friend and just fly to a planet and then maybe shoot some things, or maybe just walk around in a beautiful procedurally generated world. And he's like, you're describing Deep Rock Galactic. And I'm like, no, because I want it to be like procedure generated. He's like, you're describing Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah.
He's like, you literally just described the game. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll play it. So I actually have it downloaded on my PC.
Oh, we should play it. It's really good.
We should play
Some of the caverns are like really...
a stupid video instead.
Yeah.
See what we're doing for you people?
Some of the caverns are like really awe-inspiring as well. Like, caves sound a bit boring, but some of them are proper like full biomes.
Well, caves were the best thing in No Man's Sky.
Yeah, and in Minecraft, in my opinion.
Yeah, the mines.
Yep.
It's in there. I mean, some people forget this, but the mine comes before the craft.
Exactly. The most important part.
Yeah. Well, my next one is awe-inspiring in a different way, and is not procedurally generated unless you count nature as being procedural generation. It is Castle Rock Beach, West Australia. which was by Caves Road or Caves RD. I don't know. And yeah, it's just it's a game that is a recreation of Castle Rock Beach, West Australia, and it is done in Unreal Engine. It looks fantastic. It's all like photogrammetry, scanning, everything. It just looks fantastic. It looks really, really good on a high-end PC. Go and check it out. I think you can play it in VR as well.
Yeah.
And at first, it's I think it's about $5, or maybe this one's free.
It's free, but it costs money for the VR.
It costs money for the VR. There you go. And this was the game that made me regret not buying a VR headset in 2020, because I think we had a discussion about this one. So I was like, should I buy an Oculus Quest? I don't know. And then you were like, yeah, no, don't get one. And I was like, all right. And I didn't. And then I was like, in lockdown, I was like, man, I'd really like to go to the fucking beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this game was just, it's great. It does have a game to it. It's like a photography game where it's like, can you take photos of certain things? The time of day can change. Yeah, there's just a lot to explore. It's just a really nice walk in the wilderness. I don't know how much it appeals to someone who maybe hasn't been to this location, because
I reckon it would be appealing. It's like virtual tourism, but it seems like it's done well. And what it seems like they've done really nicely, just looking at the screenshots, is they've got the lighting of West Australia nailed down. And I think West Australia has a really nice look about it. Apparently it's one of the brightest places on Earth.
Really?
Yeah, so the trees
I said that really weirdly. I was like,
really? Yeah, everything is just super bright. Like the leaves really shiny and stuff here. And it looks like they've captured that pretty nicely in this game.
Yeah, there's I think a picture of the like speed limit sign.
Yeah.
I just saw that and was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, inspiring. Yeah. It's funny seeing it, because we rarely see photorealistic recreations of Australia in games, and I just wonder, seeing this kind of thing, if this is what people who live in LA or New York just feel all the time. Like, yeah, you know, it's like, is it a feeling that you get? Is this something that gets old after a while?
Yeah.
I remember when Spider-Man came out, that has a very, you know, people always talk about GTA games, but they're sort of parody recreations of places. I remember when Spider-Man came out, people being like, no, I like went to a place where like me and my friends used to hang out after school, and I was like, wow, I'm like there, it looks real, it's great.
Yeah, that would be an amazing feeling, I think.
Yeah, and it's like, that's sort of what this felt like. I'm like, yeah, like I've been here, I've been on this rock, I've, you know, done all this stuff. So it's an interesting feeling, and I don't know, like I'm saying, I felt it, and I don't know if you would feel that if you didn't know the place very well. You'd just be like, oh, weird. Oh, the bloom lighting's very harsh here.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's what it's like.
Yeah. Harsh bloom in WA.
The sky just looks right and everything.
Yeah.
And the rocks, the way the rocks look, I think that's the thing that got me. It's just like, fuck, yeah, like the rocks just look right, you know?
Yeah, it's really difficult to get that part of nature right, it seems.
And it's funny too, because I think the only thing that I can compare it to is Forza Horizon 2.
The one in Australia?
One in Australia.
Yeah.
Which was on the other side of the country. It was, I think, Surfers Paradise and like that area. And it was, I think we talked about it when I was playing it, and it's like, it's so close, but it's this surreal mistake of a location where they've gotten all the assets from that location, but then I think there's a British team that made the game. They've done things with those assets that wouldn't be done with them in real life. So the thing that always sticks out to me is that I was driving down the road in Surfers Paradise, and people have put their bins out on the side of the road, but then there's like garbage bags like next to the bins, which is like, I guess, a thing you do in other countries when you're like, oh, well, the bin was full, so we filled a bag up. That's illegal in Australia. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
The garbage people won't pick it up. So it's kind of this funny thing of like, this is weird. Like everyone on the street has suddenly forgotten how recycling and the bin system works here, you know?
Yeah, I wonder how often
And-
that happens with American games, where they just get the small details wrong. But I guess they're probably
Yeah.
American developers a lot of the time, so maybe not.
I think it's easier in America too because there's so much more media that you just get a sense, you know?
Yeah. That's
You
good.
kind of be like, oh, well, what does a New York street look like? It's like, maybe American games made internationally look more stereotyped, but they look correct. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they got the stereotype right, whereas Forza Horizon in Australia, whatever it was called, was like, it looks incorrect. It's like,
Yeah, there's not a lot
Yeah.
of good reference material, I suppose.
yeah,
Aside from
they really
Crocodile
needed to go
Dundee.
and watch like, Rake or something, and just recreate like Sydney. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think it's City. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's still an enjoyable game, but it's definitely the nature parts is the part I'm comparing that to Castle Rock Beach, West Australia. And I think that does a better job because it's focused on obviously a smaller area, and it's a walking thing. I guess Forza also the problem of like you can't get out of your car, so you're going to be like, well, we've got to make this walking track big enough for a car to go down so that you can get to the cool, the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas Kay's Road is really good. So anyway, we've been talking for like 40 minutes, so we should wrap this up.
I
But
got
those are the...
one more game.
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you went first.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. My final game, also probably on a lot of 2020 lists, although I think it actually came out in 2019, is
Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight. I love this game. I don't know if you've heard about it. No, Disco Elysium. I was really looking forward to this game for like a lot of years, and then I freaked myself out that I had hyped it up too much, so I sort of put off playing it a little bit. And when I did play it, I realized I had not hyped myself up too much. It is a really amazing game. I like in the time from when I first heard about the game until it came out, I had this realization that I don't really enjoy like CRPGs like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. And I think those sort of stories usually just work better in a book. But then Disco Elysium, to me, just shows that I think there's so much more that those games could be doing that Disco Elysium is doing. And yeah, just doing super well. I don't think it's a fluke. I think they obviously spent a lot of time making this game. Apparently, it was like a tabletop role-playing universe that the developers had created together, and they based...
I heard that.
Yeah, they based the game off of that, which is great. And you can really feel it because the world building is so consistent and well thought out.
I think people like that's a great story, but I think there's more to it than that. I think they were just genuinely good writers because there are definitely games I've played that had the same origin.
Yeah.
They had some tabletop universe that they created and they sucked.
Yeah, it's surprisingly
because they're full
common.
of in-jokes and they're just like, hey, this was great when we were doing it. It'll be great when people are playing it,
Yeah. But yeah, not with this game. They really nailed it. Oh yeah, the story of it is you're like a cop who's been sent to investigate a murder in this port town in a fictional universe. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's sort of like...
Fremantle.
Yeah, it's sort of like Eastern Europe in the future, dystopian a little bit, and you're this...
Less Fremantle.
Yeah.
Wait, no, that's Western Europe. No, never mind.
You're this... you have amnesia, and which is classic, but they really play with that in a really funny
Does
way.
he make a joke about it? He's like, what a cliche.
Yeah, there is this funny bit, like the third day, these two other cops from your police station show up, and they're like, oh god, when they see you, they like don't want to talk to you, and you're like, hey, and they're like, Jesus Christ, please don't talk to us. And you have this partner, and he's like, wait, do you know these people? And you're like, I think so. And you're trying to like play it cool, but you're always, because you're like an alcoholic, burnout, and they just don't want to talk to you. It's amazing. You should play it.
Yeah, I want to. I think they're updating it and doing things, and I always get angry when I play a game and then the definitive edition comes out.
Yeah, and I think the definitive edition is coming out really soon, and also on Switch. So yeah, grab it on that, I would say.
You're going to be good on Switch? It's not because the art looks quite detailed. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I don't know. It's like a book, you're sitting back and playing it. I played it with a controller, which was a bit like that. I'm not sure, but
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played it with
That's
a
what the
controller.
Switch has. I don't know if you know this.
No, but I mean, like, in terms of the screen size, you're right. Like, you would be losing a lot from the art, I think, on a small screen, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, the writing is sort of the thing that people have said, though.
Yeah, that's the main hook.
Yeah. I like the old washed up detective with long hair and a beard kind of thing. It reminded me of a film I really like, Inherent Vice, and Joaquin Phoenix's character in that. Just sort of has a similar kind of vibe to that guy.
Yeah, it's definitely like playing on a stereotype a little bit, but it does it in a way that's pretty different, I think. And also, you're like such a joke in a lot of games, films and stuff where there's that washed up detective. It's quite serious, and in Disco Elysium, it's sort of just a joke about how much you fucked yourself up and trying to get by with your.
There's a lot of romanticization of those characters as well. I know a lot of people really love The Big Lebowski, and I sort of don't understand that like hardcore fan base for the dude. It's like, I don't get it. Like, he's not. I don't think he does anything that I don't understand. I'm sure someone could explain to me the genius of the dude, but it just seems like one of those early examples of it was just a meme. It was just very easily compressed down into something that people could share or dress up as. You know, and that's why people liked him, and you don't have to spend a lot on the cosplay.
Yeah, I think it's because he's just a slacker. He's living the slacker life, and people love that idea.
Just the relatability of someone with long hair and a beard, and it's like, oh, great, I don't have to, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. But hey, the dude abides. All right.
Hell yeah, bro.
Right? Yeah. So in terms of, if you had to like rank washed up detectives, you got to marry, fuck, kill. All right. Doc from Inherent Vice. This guy from Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
And the dude. They're all the same character.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
It's tough. I've never seen Inherent Vice, so it makes it even harder.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, it's a wild card. I mean, okay, so he's a detective. Well, I guess they're all detectives.
Yeah.
He doesn't do heroin.
That's a plus.
That's a plus.
You can't say that about some Disco Elysium characters.
Okay. He owns a car, I think.
That's good.
So that's... I don't think the dude owns a car.
The guy in Disco Elysium crashes his car. Slight spoiler.
Okay, yeah, so Doc doesn't crash his car.
So that's good. See, he sounds like Mary type.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I think the film and the book sort of... He would like to settle down. So
yeah, there you go.
That's what... It's a love story, so...
Fuck the Big Lebowski and then kill the Disco Elysium guy. That's...
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
See, Disco Elysium guy might be good because it's like he's got amnesia. So do you fuck him before he's got amnesia, and then you could do something really wild and he wouldn't remember? Look at it. Oh, that came out wrong. Okay, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Kill that guy.
Yeah. Probably just kill
the dude.
Yeah.
I guess the dude fucks as well.
Yeah, you see it. You see him fuck, so you know you're
see
in
him
for
fuck,
it, you know.
so you know, yeah. Just don't know if I want to have sex with the dude.
You don't want to have sex with a Disco Elysium guy. He's super gross.
That's the thing, is like, you want to fuck Joaquin Phoenix. He's like the handsomest man in the world.
Yeah.
But I guess if you marry him,
fuck him all the time.
You fuck him all the time.
And he has a car. Anyway,
he has a car.
We should probably wrap this up.
47 minutes. Well, I guess we're going to cut the beginning. It's like 20 minutes. All right. Yeah. Thanks very much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you thought of these games. If you played any of mine, that's really great. If you didn't, I'd recommend them. If you played any of Rob's, let him know.
Yeah, hit me up.
Tell Rob, be like, oh, I played Hades. And he'll be like, no way.
That's crazy.
You played Hades?
Yeah. No one else has played that game. It's so niche.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, check him out on Twitter, Big Egg, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm at Moo Moo Mang. We're making a game called Cardboard Kings. That's going to be on the list for 2021.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even joking. I've done it for all my games. So I've always put them on my list. So I'm only going to have 4 for next year. But yeah, whatever. Check it out.
Yeah.
See you
Thanks for
guys.
listening.
Bye.
Bye.